Imagine this. In just one night, a man travels from Mecca to Jerusalem, then ascends through 7 different heavens. Along the way, he meets every single prophet who came before him, stands in the divine presence, and then returns, all before the sun comes up. This is the story of the Isra and Mi Raj, a truly mind-bending event in religious history. It's a story that has fueled faith and sparked debate for more than 1,000 years. So let's get into what really happened on this incredible night.
But right from the get-go, beyond just the amazing story itself, there's a central question that has fascinated scholars for centuries. Was this a literal, physical journey with his body, or was it a deeply profound spiritual vision of the soul? And that's the lens we're going to use as we explore this whole event. To really get a feel for how significant this journey was, you first have to understand the context. You have to know when this happened. Now, what's so fascinating is the timing. This didn't happen when things were going great. It happened during what's known as the Year of Sorrow. Prophet Muhammad had just lost his wife of 25 years, Khadija, his rock. Then he lost his protective uncle, Abu Talib. He travels to the city of Taif looking for support, and instead he's violently rejected. This is his absolute lowest point. He's grieving, he's vulnerable, he's been publicly humiliated, and it's right then, in that moment, that this divine invitation arrives. It was really a form of consolation through elevation. So the first part of this unbelievable night starts with a journey here on Earth, but one that completely breaks all the rules of physics. This is Al-Isra. So the story goes, the angel Jibril, that's Gabriel, shows up with this celestial creature called the Buraq. The name itself comes from the Arabic word for lightning, which kind of gives you a sense of its incredible speed. They say that every single stride it took could cover the entire distance to the horizon. This was the ride for the trip from Mecca to Jerusalem. Now, the whole event is grounded in scripture. You can see it right here in this verse from the Quran. The Quran itself documents this part of the journey, and the wording used is absolutely critical. I want you to notice that word abd, which means servant. For the huge majority of scholars, this is a key piece of evidence, because abd doesn't just mean your spirit. It refers to the whole person, body and soul together. So when he gets to Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, something happens that is just packed with theological meaning. Prophet Muhammad leads all the prophets who came before him. We're talking Abraham, Moses, Jesus, every single one, in prayer. This was a powerful symbol, basically positioning him as the final messenger, the one who seals and unifies all the divine messages that came before. And the journey wasn't over. From Jerusalem, the second part began. Al-Miraj, the ascension up through the heavens. With Jibril by his side, he's greeted in each heaven by a major prophet. First, Adam, the father of all humanity. Then Jesus and John. After them, Joseph, who is said to have been given half of all beauty. Then you have Idris and Aaron. And finally, in the 6th heaven, he meets Moses. Now, remember that encounter because it's going to be incredibly important a little later in our story. Then, in the 7th and final heaven, he meets Abraham, the great patriarch of monotheism, and he's found leaning against the Beit al-Ma'mur, which is described as the celestial Kaaba, basically the heavenly center of worship that perfectly mirrors the one we have on Earth. But beyond even the 7th heaven was a place called the Sidrat al-Muntaha, the lote tree of the utmost boundary. This was it, the absolute limit of all creation, where the knowledge of every created being just ends. And at this point, even the Archangel Jibril had to stop. He said that if he went even one step further, he would be burned away. So, Prophet Muhammad continued on, alone. Okay, so with all these incredible details about the ascent laid out, we have to come back to our main question. Was this physical or was this spiritual? Well, the climax of the journey and the gifts he received give us some more clues. So there, in the direct presence of God, the prophet was given the gift that would become the absolute cornerstone of Muslim worship, the institution of prayer. But the initial command, it wasn't for 5 prayers a day. It was for 50. So as he's descending, he passes by Moses again, who asks him what God commanded. When he hears about the 50 prayers, Moses, with the wisdom of experience, tells him, go back, ask for a reduction. Your people won't be able to handle that. This amazing back and forth happens over and over, a kind of negotiation born out of brotherly concern from one prophet to another, and divine mercy, until the number finally comes down to 5, but with the reward of the original 50. So this brings us right back to that debate. How do you interpret this? Well, the majority of classical scholars, they argue for a physical journey.
Their evidence is pretty straightforward. First, there's that Quranic word abd, which means the whole person. Second, look at the reaction of the disbelievers back in Mecca. They weren't making fun of him for having a vivid dream. They were ridiculing him for making a physical claim. They even demanded physical proof, like a description of caravans he would have seen on the way. But there is a significant minority view, one held by early figures like the Prophet's wife Aisha, that it was a true and profound vision of the soul. When the skeptics rushed to the Prophet's best friend, Abu Bakr, thinking they could get him to doubt, his response was immediate and total. He basically said, if he says it happened, it happened. I believe him about news from heaven. Why wouldn't I believe him about a trip to Jerusalem? That statement of pure, unwavering faith earned him the title as-Siddiq, the truthful confirmer. And for believers, his reaction kind of shifted the whole conversation away from needing physical proof to the very nature of faith itself. So whether you see it as physical or spiritual, the theological impact of the Isra and Miraj is just undeniable. It established core beliefs of the faith that are still central to this day.
I mean, think about it. The journey cemented Jerusalem's sacred place in Islam. It beautifully showed that all the prophetic missions were united under one single divine message. It established prayer not as some command delivered on earth, but as a direct, personal gift from God in the heavens. And it confirmed the reality of a world we can't see, the unseen, or al-ghaib.
And that number, 5, became the pillar of daily life for Muslims. This is exactly why the daily prayer is often called the Miraj of the believer. Every time a Muslim prays, it's seen as a personal reenactment of that same ascension, a direct connection to the divine, offered 5 times a day. And that leaves us with this really powerful final thought. At the absolute lowest point in his life, grieving, alone, rejected, the ultimate gift God gave the prophet wasn't an army or a kingdom or any kind of worldly power. It was prayer. It was connection. So if the ultimate gift given in a moment of total sorrow was connection, not conquest, what does that tell us about the very nature of faith itself?